Hello, welcome to Oxford Heirlooms. Now today we're going to start to create the back placket on the back of the body of the bubble. Okay, now one fabric marking I did not do when I was marking the other day was I did not mark for the bottom of my placket. So I'm going to come in here and make a little mark with my blue fabric marking pen. Okay, and then I'm going to unpin my pattern piece from the fabric. Okay, put my pattern piece off to the side. And once again, I have a pretty significant crease down the middle of the fabric. So once again, I'm going to go to the ironing board and iron this away. But I think what I'll do is I'll go ahead and with my fabric cutting scissors, I'm going to cut the slit for my placket already so that I can follow that crease down to my blue mark. There we go. Okay, so let me go to the ironing board and press this. Okay, there you go. That looks a lot nicer. Now let me unpin my placket pattern piece. And once again, this placket pattern piece was not in the pattern. If you read the instructions, it tells you to cut a placket piece that's 8 inches long by 1 3/4 inches wide. Okay, now I'm going to begin by pinning this to one side of my placket slit. And when I get close to the slit, I'm going to put a pin in right at the slit. And then I can pull my fabric around and continue to pin. Uh-oh. That slit is longer than the placket. Oh, I'm going to have to cut another placket. Okay, as I check my pattern instructions, it does say for view B to cut it 8 inches long, but where the dot was for the placket is a little bit longer. So I'm going to make myself a note that that needs to be 9 inches long rather than 8 inches long. And fortunately, I had a little bit of the green fabric left over. Otherwise, this might be a disaster if I didn't have a placket that's long enough for the slit. Okay, so I have cut another piece, and I'm going to begin to pin it on now, following the slit. And then come up the other side. Grab my placket. Okay, now I'm going to start off with a 1/4 inch seam allowance and sew in a V shape until I get to the bottom of the slit. Let me put my machine back to a straight stitch. Oh, and I need to change to green thread. Hold on, I'm just all discombobulated today. Okay, now I can sew this placket onto the back piece. Just sew in kind of a V shape until you get to the bottom of the slit. And the seam allowance will get smaller and smaller. And then once you pass the bottom of the slit, it starts to get larger again. Okay, I got a little bit extra placket up there, but that's okay. I'd rather have too much than not enough, like what happened to me the first time. Okay, so I need to go to the ironing board and press this seam towards the inside of the placket. Fold one side of my placket and press it down so that I can come back and pin and sew that in place, but that'll take me a minute. Okay, I've got that press. So using my pins, I'm going to pin this placket in along the original seam line, and then I'll use a needle and thread to tack that into place. You can whip stitch it or use a blind stitch, just whatever is your preferred method of tacking something down by hand. But this will take me a minute to do. So once I get finished pinning this and tacking this down with a needle and thread, I'll be back. Okay, I've got that tacked into place, and I've been to the ironing board to press it. So the next thing I'm going to do is, just using a straight stitch and going back and forth a few times, I'm going to tack diagonally. I'm going to sew a diagonal line, tacking the placket to itself on the inside. And that keeps it from floating out of the slit of the placket. Okay, now as I look at this from the back outside part, let's see, I want this to button left over right. So just to help remind myself, I'm going to go ahead and pin one side of my placket to the inside of the garment. Okay, and that matches up really nicely along the back edge. Okay, all right, now in the next video, we will begin to prepare this back piece to attach it to the back bodice pieces of the garment. But in this video, we were creating the placket, which turned out real nice. Okay, thank you.